and welcome to all you TLBTV viewers out there. I'm your host, Lorana, and you've joined us for another episode of Write the World, where we talk to all sorts of different authors and writers to bring you lots of new books that you need to read. Of course, some writing tips for any of you who are willing to take this journey, sometimes daunting, mostly fun. Today, I have a very special guest. She writes under the name of PTL Perrin, and her name is Patti. How are you doing today, Patti?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Lorena. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Now, your books, you told me that you have a nonfiction book that you wrote as well, correct?
That's right.
That
was my first one.
What's your nonfiction book about?
I would say it's an inspirational book. It was it started as a gratitude project on Facebook. And every day I just wrote something I was grateful for. And then it started morphing into something a little bit more as I read my scriptures every day. You know, the Lord would remind me of things in my life. And I've had a very interesting life, and I have a lot of interesting people in it. And mainly my grandchildren. And the things that they would say, the things that they would do, you know, or just reminders of things that that happened, you know, in the past. So I would post those things, and I began to develop a following. People started asking me, when is the book coming out? You need to write a book.
That's awesome.
After about a year of it, I finally gave in and said, well, okay. And I compiled them all and then kind of edited through it. And I had my first book. It's called Reflections of a Misfit.
Reflections of a Misfit. I like
totally
that.
Describes me. Yeah.
Okay, so I have to ask you, because my youngest daughter, she's 2, and you said you have grandchildren, so I'm very curious, because I don't remember my boys ever doing this, but my daughter swears that she sees Jesus above her bed every night, and she carries on like conversations with Jesus above her bed. And I'm just curious, did your grandkids ever do anything about that? You said you have some fun stories about them. Have they ever seen and spoken to Jesus?
No, not that I know of. However, if your daughter says that she sees Jesus, then she sees Jesus, because little kids don't lie about things like that. They don't know how.
Right. Yes. And that's kind of what I thought. My mom was a little like worried. She's like, are you sure you shouldn't be worried that she sees Jesus? I'm like, well, she's not scared of Jesus. She talks to Jesus. So I feel like it's okay, you know. But yeah, he resides above her bed. And so every night she just, you know, says hi to him and hi to him in the morning when she wakes up. And yeah, little Jesus lives in her room.
That's really great.
All right. So other than your nonfiction book, you also write young adult fiction, correct?
I do. Yes, I do. And it might seem a little odd coming from someone who's a grandmother, but I've always enjoyed reading young adult books. I've enjoyed reading the authors who get really imaginative, and you know that it's clean literature. It's not anything that anyone needs to worry about, and doesn't have a lot of bad words, and you know, it's just good, clean fun. And so I decided that's what I wanted to write. I grew up as an Army brat, and we did not have television in Europe, and so books were my source of entertainment. And I read everything I could get my hands on, and my parents did not monitor the things that I read. And so I was reading adult books, you know, at 10, 11, 12 years old, which I would not recommend to mothers nowadays, and I would not recommend to children nowadays. However, it really expanded my education in a lot of ways. It expanded it. And reading is so important. And so I wanted to write a book that I would have enjoyed reading as a kid. And I did. That's what I did. You know, with the Lord's help, I did it.
What a great way to think about it. So what's the title of this book?
The first one, it's a series. And the first book in the series is called Terra's Call. Terra is the name of our planet. You know, we live on Earth, but the name is Terra.
Right.
And Terra's Call is, it's kind of a way of describing or answering a lot of unanswered questions about things that are real, that really happen on this earth, that are anomalous, mysterious, but I wanted to put it together in a way that it would be entertaining and still answer questions and be educational. because a lot of the places that I go in my books, and this is the 4 of them, are places that a lot of people don't know about, places I've never seen. And yet, when I do my research, I really get there, and really get into those places. And I just wanted people to experience that.
I'm sorry. My daughter is here with me today because she's not feeling very well. You have to be quiet. Hear about her book. Can you say hi? You want to say hi?
Hi.
Yeah.
Aww.
I know you're not feeling very good today. So you do a lot of research then for your book?
I do, yeah. I use Google. I know other people use Bing and other things. It doesn't matter what you use. But the research part is really the fun part, because when I'm investigating one thing, it leads me to another, which leads me to another and to another. And before you know it, my mind is just exploding with all these ideas and all these places and all these what ifs, and I think the what ifs really drive my books. What if something happened? What if ancient aliens, and I don't know if you've ever watched that program, but it's really a lot of fun. What if ancient aliens were real? What if aliens visited us in our past? And what if they're still here? What if the weather anomalies and all of the strange storms that we've had recently, and the earthquakes and all of those other things that are happening on our planet, what if there was a cause other than climate change? What if something else were driving that and nobody knew about it? And what if there were let's say a Cherokee prophecy that 4 young people would be called upon to save the earth if they can? And those things started flowing through my head, and I just got so excited about it, and I wrote it. I just wrote it. I wrote the first book is the kind of brings you to the characters, and they do have adventures, a lot of them. And the second book is just a continuation of that. But then by the time I'd finished writing the 3rd book, I realized that there was an overarching theme that is so exciting and so incredible that I cannot wait to get to the 4th book to bring it all together. And, the big climactic moment. But there is a reason for all of it, and I can't wait to write it.
So are you planning just 4 books in the series then?
Yeah, that's what they call a tetralogy. And tetra is, it means 4 in Greek, tetra. And everything within the books has something to do with the number 4, because it's an important number in Native American philosophies and in a lot of different philosophies. 4 is a very important number. You have your 4 seasons, you have your 4 points of the compass. 4 is important. And so I figured I'd have 4 characters, and it is written from the point of view of each of the characters in different sections, so it's not confusing. Nice. And it's written in first person present because I believe in living in the moment. And when it's in first person present, you are in the moment. And I believe it just adds a little bit of immediacy to it, that gets to be really exciting. And I've been told that they are page turners and that I'm pretty good with the hook. Yay. And that people who read the first book can't wait to get to the second, and those who've read the second can't wait to read the third.
Awesome.
And that's so much fun for me. I write the way I used to love to read. Well, still love to read. I didn't used to anything. But the way that I loved reading, I wanted to write a book that was like the ones that I enjoyed reading so much.
Yeah, and I love that, what you said earlier about it being like clean books, that you're not ashamed to read them. And that was one thing when I started too. I write mainly adult books. I have a kid series too, but all of my adult books, when I started, I said, I'm not going to have anything in them that I wouldn't let my kids read, because I kind of felt the same way. I know that when you put stuff in there, it sells a lot better. But I didn't want my kids to be like, Mom, why would you say that? Why would you put that in there? And I didn't want to have to like hide my name or anything like that, or for people to have to hide my books. And so I'm really pleased that there are other people out there who have that feeling, because there are a lot of books that kids really shouldn't be reading. And, especially when you get younger kids who are advanced and they need something more challenging, but they don't need to be reading adult situations and things like that. So it's a really good market that we need more books in.
Yeah, I agree. And those are the kinds of books I still like to read.
Me too.
I do read adult books, with questionable content. And I appreciate the authors who write them, because I know that they're real people and they're wonderful people, many of them. And it has nothing to do with the kind of stuff that comes out in their books, but I prefer good, solid, clean stuff. I don't feel that you need to have curse words in a book to make it more real, because I don't talk like that. And nobody I know speaks like that. And even the kids that I know, the teenagers I know, they don't talk like that either. So it makes no sense, that they write these things. And sometimes I think it's a lazy way out too.
Yeah, I agree. I teach a story writing class at my school, and I have this kid. I've never heard this kid curse. Maybe they do. Maybe they do when they're not around me, but I've never heard this kid curse. And then this book that she turned in, like there's 15 curse words on the first page. And I'm like, what are you doing? This isn't really necessary for your characters. I mean, they don't have to be, cursing at each other. And it wasn't even like cursing for effect. It was like cursing as like it's everyday language. And that's what it really gets me. I'm like, people don't, I mean, there are people who do, but on the whole, people don't speak like that. And so why sometimes kids want to sensationalize that, I'm not really sure, but.
Yeah, I think they think it's acceptable because it's what you see in a lot of movies,
right?
And I don't understand it, because honestly, it just doesn't add anything at all to anything. If it's in dialogue, and if there is a situation that calls for it, and if it's somebody who would react in that situation with that language, then okay, but the way it's used, it's just not, it makes no sense.
You and I are on the same track. In fact, I just did an interview last week, and they were asking me about curse words. And I told them, I said, I used to love reading Stephen King, and I still like Stephen King. I mean, he's an amazing storyteller, but I didn't like all the curse words. And because I would sometimes read his books more than once, I used to go through with a black Sharpie, and I would mark out all the curse words. And they were like, what? And I said, well, okay, I had to read it the first time, but they were never necessary. And so I would just Sharpie them out so that if I read the book the second time, I didn't have to read any of the curse words. So, yeah, I mean,
did it make a big difference when you Sharpied them out? I mean,
no,
it
didn't affect the story at all. The content wasn't affected. They were all extraneous words. And so I was like, I didn't need that in my head, because, the more that it fills your head, the more likely you are to turn around and use them. And I don't want to do that else. So
yeah, we are on the same page.
So good. I told them I was an anomaly, but maybe I'm not quite so strange, because now there's at least two of us.
We're the non-curse words club.
That's right. Okay, so it sounds like book 1 is out. Is book 2 of the series out already?
It is, but it is now being I don't even know what the term is, but I now have a publisher, and so they're going to be releasing the books one at a time. They also have my third book, which has not yet been released, and so they're going to release the first one, not the first one, but the first one in the series, I think in August, and then 2 months later, the second one that has already been out is going to be re-released, and then the third one, which is all new, is going to be released a couple of months after that. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun working with my new publishers, and just the whole journey, of learning a whole new approach to doing everything. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Right. So when you wrote them originally, did you self-publish them the first time?
I did. The very first one, the one that is nonfiction, I actually went to a vanity publisher, and had them do it because I knew nothing about it at all. It was totally, totally new to me. But after that, I did the others through self-publishing, and it worked very well. One thing I did insist upon was hiring an editor, because I know that, I can write, but there's so much that I don't see even after my 10th time through the book that someone else can pick up on. And my editor was great, and she picked up bits of dialogue and extraneous things that didn't need to be there, and really helped me to tighten it up. And I learned a lot from that process too.
I think that's so important. My first books were self-published, and so similar. I did my first book with a vanity publisher, and it was an awful experience. And I realized afterwards, I was like, okay, the only thing I don't know how to do is my own cover. And once I found a cover artist, I was like, why in the world did I pay so much money to have someone else do this? But nowadays, when I look at a lot of the self-published books, most people do not take the time to get an editor. And it really shows a lot of times, especially if you don't have a grasp of grammar, just basic grammar. I don't know how many books I've looked at where there's just so many words misspelled, or there's, weird punctuation marks. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, at least give it to an English teacher or somebody to look over and fix your grammar, because, readers will forgive a lot, I think, in content if it still makes sense. But it's really hard to even get to the good content if you're so hung up in grammatical errors. At least for me, it is. And
it
again,
is for me too. I think it is for anyone.
Yeah. I mean, I know I'm an English teacher, so it harps on me a little more than probably the average person, but I just can't. I mean, if I read the first page and there's already 4 misspelled words, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I can't go any farther. So I think
agree with you. Yeah.
Really important.
It's like reading a first draft. A first draft is always a disaster.
Right.
It doesn't matter who writes it. It doesn't matter what kind of grammar you use or anything. First draft is going to be a disaster. But you've got it out there. It's down. You did it. And now the editing part is kind of the fun part, because you get to tweak it and you get to read it and you get to see how you say things and wonder, where did that come from? And why did I say it that way? But it is a fun process. I think the editing, you would think that the self-editing would be tedious because you're reading your own work over and over again, and it isn't. It isn't. It's fun because you constantly find mistakes that you've made. And then when you give it to someone else to read and they give you their feedback, then all of that process tightens your book up. It makes it into a really good book. And that's something I would definitely tell all authors. Do it. Get your books edited. Get beta readers. Get people who are willing to read your stuff and tell you honestly what they think about it. Not people who will read your stuff and say, "Oh, I just loved it," and not give you any constructive criticism. We need the criticism. We need the constructive stuff.
I think it's really important what you said about self-editing too is, I think it kind of lets you know about your book, because there's been a couple of times where I'm writing and I think it's pretty good. And then when I start self-editing, I don't enjoy rereading it. And I'm like, if I'm not enjoying rereading it, then how in the world is anybody else going to enjoy rereading it? And that's
a really good point.
Yeah, that's sort of like my tally mark. It's like, if I go back and I'm like, oh, wow, I could add this here and I could add this here. And, oh, I didn't know I said that. That was really cool. Then I know I've got a pretty good book. But when I go back and I'm like, oh, I have to read through this again. I don't want to read this again. Then I'm like, I need to change this then, because if I'm not enjoying this book, then nobody else is.
That's a good point. Yes.
And that's a good bar. So what are some of the differences that you've seen from being self-published and now working with a publisher? Some things that you like, some things that you're like, oh, I'm not really sure I like this part. What are some of the differences for those people who haven't done either?
Well, the things I like is that as a self-published author, you are 100% responsible for everything, your cover, your marketing, the formatting, everything. And yes, it can be done, but it's either very expensive or it's very time consuming. And so having a publisher who already knows the ins and outs of marketing, for example, is like heaven. It's so good. knowing that somebody else is going to help you. And even though you know they're not going to do it all themselves, and they shouldn't have to, still you're going to learn the process. And I think that's wonderful, being able to learn the process without the pressure of knowing that if you don't learn it now, your book is never going to sell. And having it in somebody else's hands is kind of a comfort zone. There's a comfort level there. I'm enjoying that part very much. Now, I had my books, the book covers were designed by a family member. My niece is married to a guy who is a graphic artist. He's also a master classical guitarist and ministry. Very, very talented guy. And he's in Germany. He's German. And I told him basically what I wanted. And he says, well, what about this? And he slapped them together. He didn't slap anything together. You know what I mean? But he did it quickly. And he made beautiful, beautiful covers. Let me show you one. This is Reflections of a Misfit.
Oh, wow.
Can you see it all right?
Is beautiful. Yeah. I love the colors on it.
The colors are beautiful, and the design was his idea. A dolphin swimming with a human. That's not exactly a fit, so it kind of tells the story. And this is the first cover of Terra's Call. Now, he and I did this together. Can you see that all right?
Beautiful, too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is a tetrahedron, the triangle there. It's a four-sided, or a three-sided, no, there's four sides to it, a four-sided pyramid made of equilateral triangles that meet together at the point. And on each side of the tetrahedron are symbols. And this is a major part of the story. And this is the second cover, the second book.
Oh,
it's
nice.
Very similar, different background. And the background reflects what's in the book, and then the symbol itself with the earth behind it represents the theme of the book and what's going on through all four books. So all four books are going to have that with different backgrounds.
That's awesome.
And I'm so pleased with his artwork. I think he's wonderful.
Those are really beautiful. And you're so lucky to have a family member, because to get books like that is not always cheap. I mean, for people who are self-publishing and starting out, I would still recommend go to Fiverr and hire a graphic artist. You can get fairly decent covers for about $20, $25. Don't do the ones off of CreateSpace and Amazon, because they're just not very eye-catching. They don't give you a lot of options to do much with. So
yeah, and you find a lot of people who do that have the same covers, just with different titles.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, so that's really exciting. Well, I'm looking forward to that as well. I signed with your same publisher, actually. And so my next book that's coming out is going to go through the process, and I'm super excited to work with an editor. And then the cover already, like, I sent them the picture I wanted, because I was like, okay, I will sign with you, but I've already found the perfect picture, so you have to let me use the picture. And they were great. They were like, yeah, we'll make it work. And the cover has been amazing. So I'm super excited to go through the process and learn some of the marketing, because I really think that is one of the hardest parts of being self-published, is knowing how to market your books and where to market your books. And it's not the same for all different types of books. Like my adult books are inspirational romances, and they don't do well on like virtual book tours. People don't buy off of them. They don't download them. That I don't get a lot of newsletter signups, but I found very niche places that will promote them and do a really good job. So that's really important to know as well, that all marketing isn't the same for all books.
No, you're absolutely right. And writers are not necessarily marketers. This is not part of our skill set.
Yes.
It's just, this is what we're driven to do. We're driven to write, not to sell.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference.
So I'm looking forward to that, letting go a little bit. I have found that the one thing I'm struggling with, and maybe you'll find this too, is as a self-published author, I can see my sales every day. And so if I run a promotion, I can look at my sales board and I can see, okay, yes, I sold 50 copies this day. This was a great promotion. I'm a little nervous about that aspect, like letting go of that, not being able to see the sales every day, because I want to be trying new promotions, but if I don't have that immediate feedback of did it work, did it not work, it's a little harder to know if I should continue those promotions.
Yeah, yeah. But I think there you could probably work with your publisher and get that feedback from them.
Oh,
so
yeah, that's really true.
Yeah, I just see this as working. I really feel like it's a good relationship that's developing there, and that things are going to work out really, really well.
That's exciting.
And I'm sure you too.
Oh, I know. I'm super excited. Everyone's been great so far, and so I'm like chomping at the bit. I'm like, okay, I'm ready for it to come out now. I'm probably that author that they're like, okay, it's going to take some time. But again, that's another thing when you're self-publishing. You can tend to get things out a little quicker based on however fast you do the work, and it's a little harder when it's a whole team of people working. Yes, I think you get a much better product, but you do have to take that patience and step back a little bit and say, okay, I'm gonna wait, and it's gonna be all right.
Yeah. My problem is getting my readers to be patient along with me.
Yes, that is hard. And I think the re-releasing will be nice because I watched a lot of videos from a self-published author, and her advice was to try and have a book released every couple of months so that you stay current and relevant to people. And so I really think that's a good marketing plan that they have, to release every couple of months, because it does keep you, relevant and not so far apart that your readers get angry, like, oh, I want another book, or that they forget about you. And so that's I think that's a really good aspect.
Yeah, I do too.
So I am curious, with your young adults, I know you pulled a lot from what you wanted to read, but do you also pull some of your characteristics of your characters from your family members, your grandkids, your kids? Like, do their characteristics come out in your book?
Oh, yes, they sure do. In fact, I've made sure that all of my grandkids have their names in the book as some character somewhere. Now, some of them may be weird characters, and I've told them this, and their names are spelled a little bit differently just so that it can't be traced back to them, especially with the weird characters.
Right.
But they're all excited that they're in the book. They're all excited they're in the books. Yeah, my main characters, I have 4 main characters, and they definitely have aspects of me and my family members in them. And, people are very complex. We have a whole lot of different characteristics, and they come out in a lot of different ways in a lot of different times. And the older I get, the more I see it. And so my characters tend to be a little bit fluid in their characteristics. And that's very much like my grandchildren. As the characters grow, and as our grandkids grow, you see them change. You see them grow into themselves and into their potential. And I see that a lot, and my characters do that. They grow into their potential. And some of them are, one of them is extremely angry all the time. He has reason to be, but that anger motivates him to do things that he would not normally do. And I see that too, especially as our kids get into those adolescent years. Okay. And I remember that from my own. And then there are some that one character is very empathetic. That is her gift. She has superpowers. They all have superpowers, and hers is empathy. And I have grandkids who are extremely empathetic in that way. They amaze me. They totally amaze me. And so that characteristic is in there. There's one who sees colors and auras, and she sees things that nobody else can see. She sees things that she sees through disguises. She sees when a character, let's say an alien, is able to shift into a human, and you kind of never know that that's an alien. Well, she sees the alien. She doesn't ever see the human. She sees a real person. That is another way of being very intuitive. We have grandkids who are very intuitive, and that comes out in her. And then there's one who has the ability to smell molecules in the air, like a bloodhound, and he also has a way of of calming his empathetic sister, who is his twin. And so there's that. It's just each one has special abilities that make them a whole lot of fun. And I have told my grandkids and others too that they all have very special abilities. Every child, every person has extraordinary abilities, and they have so much potential to grow into, and they have to allow themselves to grow into that. Well, in a book, you have a lot of conflict, and the conflict is really what helps the characters to grow. Oh, that's exactly what happens in real life with our grandkids. Conflict helps them grow.
Absolutely.
So in those senses, yes.
Well, I am so glad that we got to speak today, Patti, and I want you to make sure that you send me your book covers so we can get them linked, so that everybody knows where they can go to find your books. And it sounds like they can get your nonfiction book currently, and then book one will be out in August. Is that right?
That's right.
Re-released in August. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. It was such a pleasure to speak with you. And thank you for being so considerate with my child here, who is a little interruptive of us. I apologize for that.
No apology necessary.
But when they're little and they're sick, man, it's hard.
Oh, yes, I know. I do know. We have 8 children. We have 22 grandchildren. So I'm very well aware.
Oh, you do know, for sure. Absolutely. All right. Well, for all of you out there in TLBTV land, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time right here on Write the World.